The Suicide Squad movie is everything that I wanted it to be and everything that it is supposed to be. It's a representation of good comic book to movie material. This movie is just all around exactly what it's supposed to be. It needs to be a fun, colorful movie. And I think that's why I connected with audiences so much. So I'm just going to give my humble opinion on the internet. And I hope you'll stick around and listen. So, before I start talking about the Suicide Squad movie, I'm just going to give you a quick spoiler warning. We will be talking about everything that happens in this movie because it's kind of difficult to talk about this movie without getting into spoilers because people do die in this movie. So please, go watch the Suicide Squad movie, come back, and hopefully you'll watch this video again. But without further ado, let's get into it. So, the Suicide Squad movie, directed by James Gunn, is an absolute breath of fresh air and exactly what we needed in times like this. With a pandemic going on, all these current world events, comic book fans and movies have been looking rough recently. Things getting delayed and stuff not coming out. But Warner Brothers and DC have blessed us with yet another one of their surprise movies. This movie came straight to HBO Max and it's also in theaters, which is part of the reason why it hasn't made a lot of money. But another reason why it hasn't made a lot of money is because it hasn't really sat well with critics. But with comic book fans, this movie has been the shit. People, and especially comic fans, absolutely love this movie because it's a breath of fresh air. It's a new type of movie, and I absolutely love the new style that the DCEU is taking, and I think that if they continue this style, their movies will work, and I really do enjoy these types of movies. Fun colors, and I really just like whenever studios let their directors do whatever it is that they want, and it's exactly what they let James Gunn do in this movie, and it turned out perfect. Now, that's not to say that the Suicide Squad is without its flaws. I do think that this movie suffers from a very large pacing issue, and I do think that it suffers from this quite a bit. We don't really get to spend much slow scenes with our characters, but the scenes that we do get are actually meaningful, and our characters get a chance to bond and actually become friends. In the last movie, our characters were saying that they were a family, but in actual reality, they weren't. That movie was edited so poorly, chopped up, spit out, and redid so many times that those characters didn't have time to be a family. But with this movie, James Gunn had all the time in the world to make these characters into actual friends. And I love that. I love the slow scenes that we get with our characters, like whenever King Shark talks about how, oh, you wear a fake mustache, we can go into town with him. Or whenever Peacemaker and Bloodsport are trying to one-up each other in that village, or the bar scene, or in the scene where they're all dancing together, or in the bus ride whenever Bloodsport and Ratcatcher 2 share a slow scene together. I like these scenes. I like that at the end of the movie, our characters aren't told to go be the good guys. They choose to out of the goodness of their heart because they're not truly evil. And I think that that's one of the greatest parts about this movie is that the characters in this movie aren't truly evil. And that's one of the fun things. Sure, there's a big CGI fight at the end, but the movie knows its place. It knows that it's dumb, and it thrives on that. And that's one thing that I love is that this movie knows that it's silly, and it thrives on that constantly. I love the fact that all of our characters have their own little funny quirks. King Shark thinks that he's kind of smart because he can speak English and he walks around. Bloodsport is scary, but he also has a soft spot. Ratcatcher 2 isn't truly a villain at all and is actually the heart and soul of this film. Polka Dot Man is just a hurt son who's longing for his mother. And John Cena's character, Peacemaker, is kind of the villain in this movie, but it's so much fun to watch him have fun on screen, and I think that it's so great of a movie, and I honestly love it. Once again, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn absolutely knocks it out of the park in this movie. I think that she does great as Harley Quinn, and I couldn't imagine anyone else in the role. Rick Flag also has a ton of time to shine in this movie, getting another love interest, and I feel like his spot in the movie is played really well. And I do hate that they killed him off in the movie, but unfortunately, that's just the price to pay for, good storytelling and to keep the plot moving forward. I like that Rick Flag wasn't overused. Another thing that I loved is the fact that James Gunn killed off all of the original members of the Suicide Squad in the first 5 minutes of the movie, except for Harley. He kills off Captain Boomerang in like the first 5 minutes, and this shows that we're done with those movies. That's in the past now, and we can move on to new things. Sure, it kind of hurt a little bit to see Captain Boomerang die because I did kind of enjoy him in the first movie, but I also like that we're moving on from there and that James Gunn is completely okay with just cutting off those movies and just moving on with the new movies. I enjoy that, and I think that it's great. Now, to circle back to the pacing issue, I do think that this movie does suffer from a kind of big pacing issue. For starters, we start off with, how the first movie kind of started off. A little bit of an introduction to our characters, but not as heavy as the last movie. Also, they don't use as many licensed songs, which I absolutely love because the last movie butchered the hell out of licensed songs. So we get a little bit of a brief introduction, but then we go straight into a big action scene where we witness the current Suicide Squad that Amanda Waller's been using for a little bit to all go and die on a beach except for Harley Quinn, and I love this scene so much. It's so funny to watch each member of the Suicide Squad try to do something fun but end up dying, and I think that it's hilarious the fact that Mongal is the one who pretty much gets all of them killed, and I love it. I love the fact that the Weasel stays alive in one of the post-credit scenes, and I think that it's such a great touch to the movie to set him up for another sequel. But to talk about the pacing issue, we go straight from this action to another introduction scene. We get Bloodsport, played by Idris Elvis, hope I pronounced that correctly, who is cleaning toilets inside of the prison. Now, we're shown that this is his job, but the thing is, it's like we go straight from action to a long period of slow scenes, which is fine, but, typically you don't go from action to a long, slow scene. You either do one or the other and then pick up somewhere else. But it's fine. So we get another introduction scene, and that's about it. And that's kind of where the pacing ends at. The movie doesn't really know how to go from, slow scenes to action scenes. But other than that, at the very beginning, I really have no other complaints for this movie. I think that it's well written. It's all around a very solid film. It has a good villain. Starro the Conqueror, I think, is such a great addition to the DCEU, and one that I thought in 1,000 years we'd never see. If you guys didn't know, Starro the Conqueror was one of the first villains the Avengers ever fought in the comic books, and I thought that we'd never see this character on the big screen, and I absolutely love the fact that Starro was the main villain of this film. We also get the Thinker, which he's a good addition to this movie. He also dies in it, which is fine. I mean, he doesn't really need to come back, but by far, the person who steals the show is, once again, like I said, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. She's not really in it for very long, which is fine because she doesn't need to be in it for very long. She's had 2 other movies to shine and be a good character, and I feel like she's well written in both of those movies. And I feel like that Margot Robbie really knows how to play this character, and it's kind of like the similar thing with Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool or Henry Cavill as Superman. No one else can really picture him or her in that role. So, with all that being said, guys, I really did enjoy this movie. If you haven't gone and seen it, please go watch it. Do yourself a favor. It's so good and a breath of fresh air. So with all that being said, that's all from me. I'm out. Hey guys, me again. I just wanted to take a second to tell you about my TikTok. It's Mr. Movies 4, and that's where I post all updates, and whenever I Twitch stream on there, I post new videos whenever they're out, and also the times I Twitch stream. Alright, I'm out.